Adam Napper from Farrow Jamieson here. Apologies, we're a few minutes late with the start. I just delayed it for a few minutes because I pushed the start date back, the start time, sorry, to 5:15 from 5:30, and a few people are just still rolling in. So apologies for the late start. Today, with the Pathway to CFO webinar, I'm joined by Daniel Malherbe from Southern Spars, who is a bit of a success story of the Pathway to CFO group. Now, I started the group, as some of you may be aware, 3 years ago, when we started face-to-face networking, a networking group here at Farrow Jamieson, and we got a couple of CFOs in to talk live to the group, which was great. Had some nice wine and some sushi, and it was good networking. What we couldn't do, though, was push this content out to a much wider audience. But Daniel was actually one of the first people to come along to these sessions a couple of years ago and has subsequently become a CFO. So I thought it would be a very good story to share with everyone, as a lot of people that are listening ultimately probably want to be in a similar job one day. So good afternoon, Daniel.
Hi, Adam.
We're also joined by a recent addition to Daniel's team at Southern Spars, Gordon, who has been with Southern Spars a matter of weeks, isn't it? How long have you been there, Gordon?
Yeah, so just about to finish my first month, getting to there. So.
And what's your position there?
As finance manager.
Finance manager. So I'll be firing a few questions at Gordon.
Sounds good.
When Daniel starts talking too much, probably. Over to the next page. Just the housekeeping. Some of you, the regular attendees, will be familiar with this. For those listening live, you have the ability to ask questions, and it would be great if some of you could pitch in and ask questions. No questions too silly. If it is, I just won't ask it. You've got that box on the screen there in front of you, so you can minimize the screen if you want to with the red arrow there, and to type any questions into the white chat box there and send them to us. I'll try and keep the webinar to about 40 minutes or so in terms of duration. So over to the next page. So Daniel has been with Southern Spars for just over 2 years. Now we'll talk in a little bit more depth shortly about the recruitment process, how Daniel went into Southern Spars, but he's the group CFO, and I'm sure Daniel will expand on in terms of what the group means.
Yep.
And I'll also hand over to Daniel in a minute to talk about Southern Spars Group, because I'm sure he can do it much more capably than me. So on to the next screen. Daniel, your career to date, we've got a snapshot here. I've pilfered some of the information from your LinkedIn profile, as you can see, and
yep.
The academic and professional qualifications is taken from your CV a couple of years ago. But take 2 or 3 minutes. Talk us through your professional background and your academic background as well, in terms of how you got to be where you are today.
Yes. Hi, Olive. Thank you for listening to tonight. I'm looking forward that you guys are going to enjoy what I can share to you about my experience and where I am at the moment with my career. So basically, I finished secondary school at the end of 2002. I went directly to university, where I did a 3 years degree and then 1 year Bachelor of Accounting. And then straightly after that, I joined PwC back in South Africa in their Stellenbosch office, which is in the heart of the winelands, basically 50 kilometers from Cape Town. There I was quite involved in the wine industry, and typically your SME market. Didn't have much corporate experience just because of the nature of the office and the type of clients we had. So typically Southern Spars, where they fit in perfectly in the SME market. My career with PwC, which I spent 5 years with them, came really handy when I applied for the position with Southern Spars. Basically, I became a CA, was at the beginning of 2009. I did 3 years, well, we call it articles back in South Africa, which is basically your 3 years you're doing while you're at an audit firm. And then I did 2 years as a manager, where I managed various clients on the audit side of it. Part of my role included a bit of accounting work as well, which helped me when I applied for the position with Southern. Then I decided to move to New Zealand just because of better career opportunities, and I wanted to do my OE experience, and subsequently New Zealand became my permanent home. So yeah, basically after with my move to New Zealand, Unfortunately, I had to take a step back in my level. So basically, I was a manager with PwC, and then moving to BDO, I became a senior, audit senior 2.
How did you get the job here, Daniel? You got the job when you arrived in New Zealand?
I came to New Zealand without a job.
Yeah.
And I had all the documents in my suitcase. I actually started the job hunting in November, because November of 2011. I came in March 2012. Was tied up with a recruiter who I basically met the following day after I set foot in New Zealand, and he helped me placing me with BDO.
How easy was that job to get?
I would say it was a bit challenging for me in the sense because Afrikaans is my first language, and I haven't spoken much English since, before I moved to New Zealand. So the English was a bit of a challenge for me in the beginning, even though I spoke it fluently. As you guys can hear of my accent, it wasn't always the easiest. But BDO was willing to give me a chance, and I'm really grateful for what they did for me in the year I was with them. And then shortly afterwards, I was ready to move into out of the public practice and into a commercial role.
So tell me, Southern Spars, obviously, I was involved in that process, and we'll talk about it in more depth in a minute. So that was 2 years ago, wasn't it?
Just over 2 years, 2 years and 2 months.
So that was the move into the management accountant role?
Yes, that's correct.
And you did that for just under a year?
Yes.
Until you jumped into your current job?
My current position, yes.
Group CFO.
Yep.
In terms of looking at your academic background, I like to ask a lot of accountants and CFOs this question. At what age did you sort of decide to go down the accounting track in terms of your profession?
Sometimes I don't know why. My dad is an accountant, and he absolutely hated it because he's more of an engineer, handyman, so he never enjoyed being an accountant. I was actually signed up to go into more of a mathematical role at uni, and literally less than a month before uni started, I decided I'm not going to do that. I want to become an accountant, and I just made a choice, and luckily for me, it was the right decision, and I'm not looking back one day over the decision I made.
Right, on to the next page, Angeline. This is a good opportunity to talk about Southern Spars. Now, many of you may not actually be aware of who Southern Spars are unless you're into your sailing, and I'm sure everyone is. I've put a bit of a description along the middle there, which you can read, which is a sort of 2 or 3 sentences on really the bigger picture. But look, just take a couple of minutes, Daniel, and just talk us through the Southern Spars Group, what you do and who you are.
Yes. Anybody who is involved in sailing would probably have come across Southern Spars in the past. We're worldwide well known for what we do in the sailing industry. We regard ourselves as being the best and delivering the highest quality of our products. We are basically fully customized carbon fiber mast and rigging for in the racing and the super yacht industry. If you think about Volvo Ocean Race, the 2013-2014 Ocean Race, which is about to finish now, we were the sole provider for all the mast and riggings for all the teams. And if you think about America's Cup, Team New Zealand, we're a proud supporter of Team New Zealand, and we supplied the wings for them and Luna Rossa, and also spare parts during the previous America's Cup. And then in many of the big super yachts out there in the industry, we'll see our company sticker on their masts.
So where would your competitors be based? I'll gather all around the world.
New Zealand, because we are set at the bottom of the world, so we compete mainly with the European market. Luckily, living in an international world nowadays, we basically manufacture most of our products, especially on the higher end of the market, in New Zealand, and we'll put it on a ship and ship it to Europe, where it will be basically stepped and commissioned for the customer.
Right, we just had a good question through actually, just on your background. What's the main difference between the role of management accountant and CFO at Southern Spars? I'm going to ask both of you this question because you're both in these respective roles now.
Yes.
Tell me, actually, Gordon, you can pipe in first.
Sure.
Because you're the management accountant. What's your role at Southern Spars? How would you describe that in a few sentences?
Well, I'd say it's more into the detail for most of the time. and then for the rest of the portions, assisting Daniel and also running the finances of the organization. So I guess in terms of from the management accounting side, it is more into your spreadsheets and the details into the technical accounting side.
Yep.
And then I'm sure Daniel will enlighten you guys on the CFO responsibilities.
And you've got staff, how many?
Yeah, so
there's,
at the moment there's 3 staff reporting into me, and there'll be a 4th one coming in tomorrow.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Daniel, your role, what's the key differences?
I would say the key differences is for me being the management accountant previously. I basically walked in the morning. I knew what I was going to do for the day, because when you're busy with month end, you know you're going to be with month end tasks. When month end is done, you always try to do the ad hoc improvements in the accounting processes and reconciliations and things like that. With being a CFO, I just don't plan my weeks anymore, because every morning I can go with I'm going to do this and this today, and by the end of the day I haven't even done it. To give you a perfect example, like this morning, we recently gone live with our new ERP system called Epicor 10, and I'm in the process of recreating all the reporting for my finance team to enable them to do their day-to-day job. And this morning the accounts payable team had to run the report to do the creditors reconciliations, and first thing, it wasn't working. So they went 3 hours of my day debugging the report. Of course, it was the first time we used it, to go and see what's wrong in the coding, fix the coding, and check it and make sure they can do their job. So basically, I would say the main difference is, like Gordon said, the management accountant is more into the details, where with being the CFO, you're managing a lot more things in a wider perspective. You're not necessarily on the detail level anymore, and I'm supporting the CEO a lot more than I used to in the past.
And of course, you've got to hire the right people into these roles to give you the information you need. Yep. Just looking at this screen here, actually, back to the company. Talk us through the 5 slides people can see, actually, because obviously they're all insights into different parts of your business.
Yes.
So I put the center bottom one there is your, it's still a new head office, isn't it? Or
yeah, we moved in there, I think, was it 2010? So we're in there for about 5 years now. If you look at the top left-hand photo, that's basically a boom. I almost want to say it looks like the Mondango. I might be wrong. The Mondango was stepped and commissioned, built by Alloy Yachts, which is a New Zealand company, end of last year. But like I said, I may be wrong, but it looks like the Mondango. And then on top right-hand corner is just, I think it looks like the previous America's Cup.
Machines in action.
Yep, with Oracle and Team New Zealand in the background, and I think I can see Luna Rossa as well. Top bottom left bottom corner is our plotter. We're the only company in the marine industry using that. We call it it's part of the North Technology Group, which is our shareholders, which is TPT, which stands for Thin Ply Technology. It allows us to lay plies of ultra thin carbon, which help with strength and weight savings. Then the middle photo is our head office in Joe McClay's Avondale, and then on the right hand side is a photo of the shop floor, where we assemble our masts and booms and spreaders.
How big is that, to give us an idea of scale? Because I've been in there. Pretty darn big, isn't it?
To give you an idea, we can easily truck out a mast on the back of a truck up to 65 meters. The only reason why we can truck only 65 meters is because down in Mata Mata, around the roundabout, we cannot go any longer than 65 meters to get around the roundabout. So we easily fit in rigs up to 65 meters. We just recently stepped our biggest project in the business's history, which is a ketch, which is basically a super yacht with 2 masts. And both these masts were 93 meters tall, where we basically did a dummy join in the plant, which spanned the full length of 93 meters.
Just don't drive it through Mata Mata.
No.
All right, on to the next slide. What I'd like you to do, Daniel, is just talk a bit about the opportunities. So I've just given a bit of a description there, which was taking off of a case study I put on Farrow Jamieson's website. Basically, the recruitment into Southern Spas a couple of years ago, and then your subsequent move into the CFO role.
Yes. So I basically got in touch with Adam back in, was it end of 2012. I got in touch with Adam. My CV was with him for a while. There was a position I was really keen on, and unfortunately it didn't work out at that stage. And then I was overseas for 2 months
when they wanted to
interview me. And then just, I think within a month when I came back, Adam sent me an email and said, listen, Dan, there's a company that's looking for a candidate. They're not going to advertise, because I think they didn't advertise the position, if I remember correctly.
I think Sam had put it out to his personal network.
Yes, to his personal networks.
Yep. Which is how I became aware of the opportunity.
And Adam let me know and said, Dan, I found your job. You would absolutely love it. So Adam quickly tied up an interview with Sam, who was the previous CFO, who's now the CEO of one of our sister companies in the US. And basically from there, it's all history.
So tell me, we went through the process. You interviewed, got site tested. That all happened very quickly in the space of a few days, didn't it?
Because I think basically in a week.
Yeah, Sam's not a guy to mess around when he sees someone he likes. You went into work on your first day after working a month's notice. What happened then?
Oh yeah, the morning I walked in, the Monday morning, Sam said to me, I'm leaving the business to join the sister company in Rhode Island in the US. You've got 3 weeks to learn as much as possible from me, and then you're basically going to take over the New Zealand business from a finance point of view, but basically running day-to-day activities. So I walked in on the 20th of May. I had 10 days to get my head around the pre-month end tasks. Then the post-month end Sam did with me, and basically 2 weeks after basically 2 weeks after month end Sam left for the US. The June month end I did on my own with assistance from the CEO, where the CEO would not be into the detail. He would tell me, nope, the numbers doesn't look right. You need to go back and dig around. I used to have conference calls with Sam over Skype doing screen sharing, where he would point me in a certain direction, but I still had to go and do all the digging to find what's going on, why the numbers is not what it should be. And then the third month then Richard was doing his annual overseas trip, where he went and visited all the companies across the group. So I had, after less than 3 months joining the company, I was all alone, responsible for the finances of this business, managing cash flow, and basically just keeping everything afloat for 6 weeks while the CEO is not there.
Tell me, a good question just come through on that subject actually. What learnings did you get from taking the role over in such a short space of time? Because you were, to coin a phrase, you were thrown in the deep end really, weren't you?
Yes. I was, let me just check the question again. What learnings did you get from that? First of all, it taught me to be proactive, to think outside the box, and not to be scared to dig around and go back into the history and see how things are done, and then also ask questions, because I was in a fortunate position that the previous management accountant was still in the business, just in a different division within the business. But I tried to stay and not to tap too much into his knowledge, first to try to figure it out, and then just ask the questions where it's necessary, because he also had a full-on job in his new position. And then also where I had the opportunity to talk to Sam and just get Sam to guide me in a certain direction. I would say partly what helped me was past experience, because I was involved in accountancy functions when I was with PwC, where I had to compile trust accounts for clients, where they would basically give you a box and say, oh, I want to see financial accounts in 2 weeks' time. So I must say, things that happened to me during my career actually definitely helped to it.
Yeah, you were definitely thrown in the deep end. Definitely a little bit of a curveball on your first day there. Another good question just come through. Did you find getting experience in a different country, i.e. your homeland of South Africa, did you find that helpful in your career development, particularly if you look at your current role?
I would say yes and no. I think you can be very successful in your own country. South Africa is really unique, and I did it for personal reasons. We previously asked Gordon a question whether he's done his OE yet. I would say it depends on the organization you're in. If you're limited to an organization with New Zealand that mainly deals within New Zealand, then you're limited to New Zealand laws and regulations. Where with Southern, for instance, we're an international company. We've got a sales office in Denmark, a sales office in Spain, production facility in Sri Lanka and Cape Town, and an R&D facility in Rhode Island in the US.
And you deal with all of those?
I deal with all of them from a finance point of view. And just from that point of view, so you're dealing with different legislations. Oh, sorry, we've also got a company in the UK. So you're dealing with different GST/VAT rules. You're dealing with different tax rules. You're dealing with transfer pricing. So the moment you're involved with a global organization, I would think overseas travel is a bit of less importance because you get that international experience. But I wouldn't, if you want to go and do your OE, by all means go and do it. It can only add to your value of your CV in the end of the day.
Yeah, no, totally. Now the picture there on the screen, by the way, guys, was taken a few months after Daniel started at Southern Spars with Kate, who was hired in the assistant accountant role, because you guys started within the space of a week of each other, didn't you? From memory. So we'll flick onto the next screen, which probably a little bit of my humour coming through there. Here, look, there's a picture of Sam. Sam, as Daniel's discussed, was the current or the former CFO.
Yep.
Who hired Daniel into the role, who's now the CEO of one of his subsidiaries in the States,
Yes.
isn't he?
Yep.
And a picture of a baby CFO there.
Adam found a picture of Sam when he was little.
Really?
Did you send that one to Sam?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll put that out later. I'm sure he'll love that. Good question come through on your first few weeks and months at Southern Spa. I think I might know the answer. At any point, did you feel stressed out during your first few months with the company?
I'm actually laughing at that question because definitely yes. It was probably one of them. There's two experiences in my life if I look back. It's probably that 6 weeks when Richard was overseas. Richard is our group CEO. When he was doing his trip around the world, and when Sam was in the US, and because I'm a perfectionist and I've got high expectations of myself, I wanted to deliver and I wanted to keep Richard and Sam happy with the results and just keep the business ticking along. So definitely yes. I can remember specifically one evening I got my heart started racing and I thought, okay, here I go, I'm gonna have a heart attack, and it just ended up being stress. And the second time was my first audit. It's quite interesting being for the first time ever on the other side of the fence, being an auditor myself in the past. Again, being a perfectionist and want everything to go smoothly, I did take the audit seriously, and that also added to some stress for me. But as soon as you work through it and you get comfortable with it, it dies down and it just gets part of normal life and you know what's expected of you.
I think from experience, having talked to another few CFOs in this series as well, they've all said the periods of your career where the shit hits the fan, basically.
Yes.
So the periods of the highest stress, in hindsight, are the periods where they would learn most and probably develop most.
Yes.
And like you said, eventually it
Yep.
sort of tapers down into business as usual mode.
Exactly.
But yeah, you don't know what you're capable of until you're put into these stressful situations where you have to deal with stuff.
The funniest thing for me always, whenever I look back at the 2013 results, you see this dip in July 2013. It's because I did the accounts on my own and I was super conservative. So I always laugh whenever I see that dip in the results.
Right, onto the next screen here. A few of the more standard questions I ask in these webinars. Firstly, if you could just summarize technically summarize your role as CFO for the group, please, Daniel.
Yep. Basically, I'm second in charge to the CEO. Like, for instance, Richard he's returning later this week of his annual trip. I'm basically, from a finance point of view, responsible for everything that happened in the New Zealand business. If there are any technical issues, I need to deal with it on the spot. From a group perspective, cash flow, I'm responsible for managing cash around the group. So if anyone needs cash or if we've got debtors problems or anything like that, creditors that needs paying, I need to give guidance to my accountants across the group. You're also dealing with multicultural. Like I said, we're dealing with South Africans, we're dealing with Danish people, we're dealing with Spanish, we're dealing with Sri Lankans, and we're dealing with people in the US. And yeah,
tell me what size of the company, just give us an idea of scale.
Size, we've got about 500 people internationally, and we're just short of 200 people in the New Zealand facility.
That's a good size business.
Yes.
Big enough to get to
yes.
the scale, but small enough to know everyone maybe.
Exactly, and I deal with the project managers, because each project is, we deal with each rig as a project. So you deal with different project managers, you deal with inventory, you're dealing with designers, you're dealing with purchasing and procurement. So you're dealing with a whole different kind of people across the whole group.
Tell me, in terms, probably hooks into that phrase, that comment actually, but in terms of the key personal traits you believe an effective CFO should have now, talking to you talk more about the business and less about doing accounts now. So what are the key personal traits you think an effective CFO should have?
I always believe in the open door policy. I'm never too busy for anyone. I would always put my workload second to one of my people's, whoever the person is and what level the person is in the business. I'll always put my needs second to theirs. Communication is really important, especially with the kind of business we are in. We're in a high risk business, highly technical business, and so communication is really, really important. Making sure I've got a certain expectation, making sure that the project managers understand what I expect from them, and making sure that I know what they expect of me as a CFO to support them in getting their jobs done. I would say confidence. I'm dealing with, we were bought out, or the whole Southern group, because we're part of the North Technology Group, which is basically North Sales, the largest sail manufacturer in the world. And the whole group were bought out by Oakley Capital, which is a private equity fund based in the UK. And end of last year, we had a group of people flying down from the UK to come and have a budget meeting in New Zealand. And I had to give a presentation, the CFO's perspective on the group. And my CEO, Richard, gave me, I think, 2 days to prepare, less than 2 days to prepare for it. And he guided me and helped me where it was necessary. But I had to sit in front of these people and tell them what I do and convince them confidently what I do and that I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I would say also definitely speak up when you're drowning. I do drown from time to time.
That's not a phrase you use in the nautical industry then?
No.
Although, yeah, do. Yeah.
Yes, so from time to time, I would go to Richard and say to him, listen, it's just getting too much for me. And then Richard and I would go and sit around the table and we would just reprioritize what he thinks I should be focusing the most and what he feels we can worry about later, because everybody's got demands from left, right, and center. And sometimes you just need to go and step away and reconsider what's really important and what's not. I would say responsibility and dedication as well, because from the day I walked into this company, I took on full responsibility for everything that's going on from a financial point of view, and I'm completely dedicated to my day-to-day job and making a success of it.
Probably answered some of the next part of the next question for me actually. What are the unique challenges of your role? How do you overcome these?
I would say the biggest challenge for me was coming in as the management accountant and then being promoted to the CFO, because first of all I was first dealing with my team, my finance team on a personal level, and then I had to step up and become part of management and getting that sort of professional distance between me and my finance team. And I experienced a similar experience when I was with PwC, where 1 month I was part of the audit team and the following month I was the manager. And that's always a challenge, bridging that gap and making people understand, listen, I'm on a new level now and our relationship has changed. It was a bumpy ride. It settled down. I still get along with my team really well, and all of us understand our new roles and responsibilities. I would say that was the biggest challenge for me.
Tell me, Gordon, what type of boss is he? You've got only 4 weeks experience.
Well, so far it's been pretty good. what really struck me, what Daniel's mentioned before, is that he always seems to make time for people. So I guess for me, it really shows that he cares about what you're doing, and which really motivates us to work harder for him.
Which sort of fits in with what he says, of course.
Yes, of course.
Which is good. Just another good question through. As a CFO, Daniel, do you have to have the strong technical knowledge in the boating industry? Really, you can say that how much technical knowledge do you have to have of your industry to be a good CFO, in your opinion?
Before I joined Southern, I was on a sailboat once, and it was a little laser, and it was one of my colleagues with BDO, and he's an absolute keen yachty, and I was actually feeling really bad when I got this job because I had absolutely no knowledge of the industry. And I would say it didn't put me at any disadvantage, but it all comes down to attitude, because within the first couple of months that I joined the company, I got myself out on a sailing boat. Whenever Richard, our CEO, had a discussion with one of the project managers, I would basically stop what I'm doing and I would just start listening to what they're talking about. And over a period of time, I built up my technical knowledge, that I can now have a meaningful conversation with the project manager and a designer, understanding what they're talking about. So I wouldn't say it's a disadvantage. It all comes down to an attitude, whether you want to know about do you want to be the accountant sitting in the corner just crunching numbers, or do you want to be the full rounder, being the accountant and also understand your business and add value to your business?
Yep, very good sentence. Might quote you on that. Going back to your so basically we've talked a little bit about your unique situation, but
yes.
the jump from being a hands-on accountant to a CFO, what did you learn in hindsight in your earlier years of training that helped you get to where you are today?
Yes. One of the things that probably stands out to me, at that time the decision made sense to me, but one of the most difficult things that I came across was actually stepping back in my career. When I moved to New Zealand, going from an audit manager to a audit senior, I had to do it. Otherwise, I had to move back to South Africa. So that was one of the most difficult things I had to deal with. Just because you grow in your career. So when I think about my life, if in the future, will I stay back in my career? Probably not. I won't advise that. When I was in the audit industry, I also had the opportunities to fulfill accountancy roles. That absolutely made the difference for me, because when you're an audit, you mainly think with an audit point of view. You lose a little bit of that commercial sense and that accountancy flavor to it, where I would say that was really beneficial to me, because I could walk in with Southern. I knew how to do accruals. I knew how to do fixed asset management. I basically understood how to prepare a set of accounts from an accountant's point of view, not from an auditor's point of view. So that was one of the benefits for me, having accountancy experience before I joined commercial.
It sort of helped you get the job as well, really, didn't it?
And that in the end of the day helped me to get the job as well. And if I have to look back, I had many opportunities as an auditor which I took for granted. Some of them which I didn't act upon, which we will come later to some of them, where I had the opportunity to grow my knowledge base and my expertise, which I didn't, and today I kind of regret it. And then another opportunity that what I had is, like I said, I was quite involved in the wine industry, and I served on the board of directors of the Stellenbosch wine route, where I had to sit with the CEO and do annual budgeting, and quarterly I had to give feedback to the board of directors about the financial performance. And at that stage in my life, I was like, oh, this is fun. A little realizing how beneficial that would be on my CV for getting the job with Southern, because I knew the budgeting process. I knew how to come up with a budget. So when you get these opportunities in your life, I would definitely recommend use them and don't take them for granted.
Yeah, no, grab them, absolutely. I'm not going to ask that next question because I think you've answered it, and we've had a better question come through anyway. When you transitioned to the role of CFO with Southern Spas, what did you at the time perceive to be your biggest weakness or aspect of your role that you needed to develop?
Ooh,
it's a good question.
Good question. I would say confidence, in a sense, because as a management accountant, I was completely confident. I knew what I was talking about. I could inspire confidence whenever I had a conversation with Richard about the state of affairs. I would give him a set of results which I was confident that's accurate. When I transitioned over CFO, I was completely in new grounds because you walk in the mornings, you don't know what you're going to do. The expectation of you is to be way more operationally than technically, like an accountant, and just dealing with things you haven't done before. Like an example, we had to go through an NZECO, which is the New Zealand Export Credit Office bond application process, and I've never done something like that in my life. And Richard said to me, there you go, there's the folder for the previous one we did, go and do it. He guided me, he helped me, and when we did the second one, I completely did it on my own. I dealt with NZECO on my own, I dealt with ASB on my own. Richard wasn't involved at all until he basically had to sign the paperwork in the end of the day. So I would say my biggest weakness was just that initial confidence to know you're in this new role, you haven't done this before, how am I going to deal with this?
Yeah. Tell me, in terms of hiring people, we talked about this before we went on air. What do you look for? Because obviously recruiting the right team around you is a big part of being an effective CFO. You can't just say their name needs to be Gordon either.
Yes.
What do you look for when recruiting people into your team?
This is actually an interesting one because back in the day, because this is my second time, I went through a recruitment process, basically filling the management accountant / finance manager position. And initially when we did it the first time around, Richard said to me, hire someone better than you. And I was just like, why would you do that in your life? Because that person is going to take your job if he's better than you. And today I value that comment. I would say whenever I recruit someone in the future, I will always hire someone better than me. Because that person, if he's better than you, first of all, you can learn from that person. That person can complement you, because if that person can take some responsibilities of you, it leaves you that spare capacity to go and focus on other areas in the business where you can add value. If you don't hire someone better than you in the end of the day, you just ending up managing that person more than actually getting on with what's important for the business.
And I presume everyone's got different strengths and weaknesses as well. Yes, if you look at Gordon, I presume this stuff that he's probably better at than you.
Yes.
And vice versa.
Exactly. Like when we hired Gordon, when Richard saw his CV, I actually missed it, with all due respect, Gordon. Richard went, oh, he's got a law degree. We're going to use him in the future. because we deal with contracts and all of that. So immediately there's an area where Gordon's got expertise and knowledge neither me or Richard have. And we already flicked a few contracts over to him and said, hey, Gordon, would you please review this contract for us and give your legal opinion based on your legal knowledge.
What tax is another good example of that. Yes. You get people come through that have got some really good tax experience.
Exactly. Then in general, I would say, and that's one of Southern's philosophies, is we hire for, I'm trying to remember now what,
attitude.
We hire for attitude and we train for skill. If you've got the right attitude, we can work with you, we can train you up. Then communication skills is really important. Taking responsibility, commitment, and the funny thing for me always is work-life balance. And I think Gordon can vouch of this one. Many times in the afternoons, I'll go to my team and say, come on, let's go home. It's time to go home. I hate going home before my team. It's important for me that we have a work-life balance, but we all need to know when we have to work hard, we will work hard. But when we don't have to work hard, let's go home. We don't need to be here.
Yeah. Right. Let's we'll do a quick fire last page here, just because I don't want to run too far over time.
Oh crap.
Answer these quick fire questions. We've got 5 here. A mentor. Yes. How important is it to work under one, and how do you choose one in your opinion?
I was lucky with my mentor. Richard is an absolutely amazing CEO in my opinion. I learned a lot from him. So I would say having a mentor is really important during your career. Identify them early and tap into their knowledge and be like a sponge. Suck as much as possible information you can.
Next one, what sets talented CFOs apart from those who plateau? And obviously there's plenty of accountants out there that would
Yes.
plateau or be happy to be in more hands-on roles. What sets talented CFOs apart in your opinion?
I would say being hands-on, being proactive, and don't be scared for a challenge. A perfect example with the Inzico bond application. I've never done it before in my life. Even if you get there 50% in the end of the day, it's better than not giving any attempt at all.
Third one down here. In hindsight, would you have done anything differently?
Yep, like I mentioned earlier about my technical skills, I had the opportunity previously in my career to expand my technical skills in the sense of VBA and macros. Today, if I had that experience, I would have been so much better off, especially in the southern business. We're quite reliant on VBA and macros.
Yeah.
So when you get an opportunity in your life, make sure you use that opportunity. You never know when you're going to need it.
I'd reiterate that as a recruiter. Excel. The better you are at Excel, the better you will be.
Exactly,
at your job.
because that's what we live in on a daily basis. We live in Excel. So the better
Both
you're
front end and back end as well.
Front end and back end.
The next one down, we've already totally answered that question, haven't we, in terms of overseas experience?
Yes.
Just to wrap up, one piece of takeaway advice for participants here in terms of your role and just summarising everything.
I would say at the end of the day, use your opportunities that come across your road to build your CV, because you never know when you'll need it, and be proactive. Because at the end of the day, I only got where I am, I think personally, because I used the opportunities. I didn't use all of them, but I used most of them, and I was proactive. I stepped up to prove myself to Richard and Sam when it was necessary, and I'm not looking back one day, and I'm always grateful for what they've done for me, because they've been a pivotal role in my career and where I am today.
And Gordon, just to wrap up from you, obviously you're 4 weeks into the management accountant role. You came out of KPMG, didn't you?
Yeah, that's right.
A few weeks ago. So you've just made the transition from Big Four into your first hands-on commercial accounting role. What sort of wrap up would you give for today's conversation?
No, I think it is all about attitude and just really putting your hand up and not being afraid to challenge yourself. Even if, as Daniel said, if you can just even attempt it, it's really the journey that matters and the learnings that you can take away from that experience.
Lovely, thank you. Just onto the last screen here. So most of you will probably be listening to the recording of this. Actually, it seems to be the way with doing these things at 5:30 in the evening. Thank you for taking the time to listen to us. Hopefully, we've passed on some valuable career development things to consider for you all. I'm looking at doing the next Pathway to CFO webinar probably in a couple of months' time. I think every 2 months seems to be about the right cycle for these, so we'll be looking to do it sometime in mid-August. If any of you have any recommendations of good charismatic CFOs that we can talk to that have got a good story to tell and people want to listen to, please feel free to email me. My email address is on the screen there. Thank you very much, Daniel. Thank you very much, Gordon. Pleasure to have you this afternoon. Thank you very much for your time, and we'll talk to you all again in a couple of months. Thank you.